Hell fell silent. No soul, no scream, no guilt. Until one day, I heard something different. A prayer. A voice that didn't come from the heavens, but from the earth. They say an angel falls only once. Lies. Sometimes he chooses to fall again.
Hell slept. For the first time since the beginning of time, there were no screams, no fire, no souls begging for forgiveness. The ground, once alive and throbbing with pain, was now blanketed in cold ash. The chains that used to clatter in despair lay motionless. Hell, the realm of eternal punishment, had fallen silent. Between black columns and broken thrones he walked. Slow steps, a distant gaze. The sound of his boots echoed against the empty walls, the only noise in the abyss. He no longer counted time. Here, time did not exist. Yet there was something different in that absence. The silence was not peace. It was an omen. Lucifer, the first to fall, the first to reign, the first to grow weary. He who had borne the weight of eternity now walked without purpose. He had forgotten the feeling of light, the warmth of human skin, the taste of doubt. Hell no longer feared him, and perhaps that was the cruelest punishment of all. To be king of a dead kingdom. He stopped before the throne, made of bone and shadow. The flames that once wrapped it were extinguished. He ran a hand over the armrest and felt the dust. What once burned was now only ash. He sighed, or perhaps hell breathed for him. Then he heard it. At first it seemed a distant echo, a trick of the mind, a sound so faint it almost vanished into the immensity of nothingness. But it was real, a voice, human, fragile, afraid, and yet calling. He lifted his face. The voice crossed the abyss, like light tearing an ancient cavern. "Hear me, please." Words issued between sobs, human words. Lucifer closed his eyes. The sound struck him like a blade. Impossible. No human had called him for centuries. Hell had been forgotten. His name erased from prayers, replaced by fear and reason. But that voice dared to remember him. "Even if it's the devil, give him back to me." The words cut the air and vibrated through every particle of the void. He felt something stir. An ancient, warm, living energy. He stepped back. The surrounding walls trembled, the throne creaked, the ashes began to rise like dust borne on wind. "No," he murmured. "This cannot be." The voice came again, nearer now, as if at his side. A desperate plea, sincere, so pure that hell itself reacted. The ground split in fissures. The long-dormant flames reignited. Fire roared, not in fury, but in answer. Lucifer tried to contain the force swelling within him, but it was useless. Something pulled, tearing him from the depths. That call was neither celestial nor demonic. It was human, and for reasons he did not understand, it crossed every barrier. Hell rejected him. The void screamed, and he fell. Again, fire wrapped around him, not in pain, but in remembrance. Images flashed through his mind. The sound of laughter, the touch of hands, the fragility of human life. Emotions he had sworn to forget consumed him. And when he opened his eyes, hell was gone. Rain fell upon his face. The air was cold, dense, full of life. He lay on asphalt under a grey sky, surrounded by buildings and neon. Cars passed, horns screamed, and no one noticed him. Just another man fallen in the city. He moved slowly, feeling the ache, the old ache of flesh. Blood ran from the corner of his mouth. He tasted it, curious. Iron, salt, mortality. It had been so long since he felt anything. And now everything returned at once. He stood. He surveyed the world and smiled. "Hell threw me out," he said softly, watching the rain's reflection on the cobblestones. "And earth still has the courage to receive me." A thunderclap answered. He took the first step. With each step, the city seemed to watch him. Lights blinked, shadows shifted, and a distant sound, a familiar whisper, echoed in his mind. The human voice still called, the same one that crossed hell, the same that now guided his steps. Lucifer followed the sound, unhurried, like one who knows the path back to sin. Because deep down, he knew. Hell had not ended. It had merely changed address. The city swallowed him, as if it had been waiting for him. Lights, horns, hurried voices. Everything pulsed at a rhythm he had forgotten. Each sound was a blow of reality. Each breath a reminder that he was once again bound to flesh. Lucifer walked the rain-slick streets of Los Angeles with his hands in his pockets and his eyes fixed on the reflections dancing in puddles. People passed without looking, too busy with their own private hells. He found that curious. Humanity no longer needed demons. It had learned to torture itself. He turned into an alley and paused beneath a marquee, watching an old sign blinking red and gold. The ecliptic. Jazz and whiskey. The soft sound of a saxophone slipped from the half-open door, mingled with laughter and the smell of smoke. He tilted his head as one listens to a forgotten language and entered. The bar was small, low-ceilinged, full of echoes and stories. A modest stage held a worn piano and a microphone with black tape. The bartender, a middle-aged man with a tired face, looked him up and down. "You lost, friend?" Lucifer only answered with a half-smile. He approached the piano and ran a hand across the keys. Dust, wood, memory, a light touch, almost a test, and the sound filled the air as if the instrument had been waiting for him. The bar owner, a burly man with a hoarse voice, left the counter and stood before him. "Don't tell me you can play." Lucifer answered without looking up. "I used to, long ago." "Then sit," the man said. "Our pianist didn't show tonight. Show us if you remember how." He sat. The bench creaked. His hands touched the keys, and the room seemed to pause for a moment. The first notes were hesitant, then sure. Old jazz, deep, almost melancholy. Conversations dwindled. The music's hypnotic sound made the room breathe differently. When the last note died, no one spoke. The owner watched him with an expression hard to read. "What's your name, stranger?" Lucifer thought for a second. Name. A word that carries weight, history, identity. He needed something new, something to fit this mortal body. "Luke," he answered. "Luke Hale." The man extended his hand. "Welcome, Luke. If you want, the piano's yours on Thursday nights. It pays little, but it pays." Luke offered a faint, nearly imperceptible smile. "I don't play for money." "Then why?" the owner asked, intrigued. He glanced around at tired faces, the hollowed conversations, the eyes that hid secrets. "Because sometimes people need to remember what they feel," he replied. The owner laughed, shrugged, and returned to the bar. Luke sat, watching the glass of whiskey left on the piano. He picked it up, swirled the liquid, and raised it to his lips. The taste burned, real, human, imperfect. Outside, the rain stopped. He rose and walked to the door, watching neon lights reflected on the wet pavement. In the glass, his reflection looked back, the same face, the same gaze, but now, something different. He existed again, but not as a king, as a man. He left the bar and wandered the silent streets. Los Angeles watched him on every corner, as if it recognized him. Wind carried distant voices, sirens, the murmur of hurried souls. Among all of it, he heard again the same sound that had pulled him from hell. The voice, faint, but there, calling him. He stopped in the middle of the street, closed his eyes, and listened. It was not a delusion. It was an echo, a thread linking him to something, or someone. a lost soul tugging at him with the force of an old plea. He opened his eyes and looked up. The city seemed to breathe with him. He smiled and said softly, "So that's why you called me." He turned and disappeared into the crowd. Behind him, the bar's sign blinked one last time before going completely dark. The hospital reeked of disinfectant and fatigue, the smell that settles in the soul after too many sleepless nights. The walls, an unforgiving white, seemed to mock the suffering of those who passed through. Evelyn Grant walked the corridor with red eyes, clutching a cup of cold coffee. The cup's label was already ragged from how tightly she gripped it. In room 407, time had stopped months ago. The boy in the bed looked like a frozen memory, wires, monitors, tubes. Nathan, the son she could not let go of, whom the world insisted was already gone. She sat by his side, tucking the blanket as if the gesture could bring him back. She spoke softly, her voice trembling with fatigue and frayed faith. "Hey, my love, the doctor said it was a good day, you know? You just need to wake. Just a little longer." Silence. Only the sound of machines and the rhythmic blink of the heart monitor. Evelyn rested her head on the mattress and closed her eyes. Her body ached, but what weighed most was the void. The accident had been quick. A car, a moment, a phone call that changed everything. Since then, every morning had been the same. Hospital, hope, silence. Her husband had left months ago, unable to bear it. She stayed, not out of courage, but because she no longer knew who she would be without that room. That night, it raged outside. Wind slapped the windows, and the corridor lights flickered with distant thunder. Evelyn looked at her son and felt something inside her break. She stood, paced, then knelt on the cold floor. Her hands trembled. Words came without thought, mixed with sobs and despair. "If there's anyone listening," she began, her voice failing. "I can't take it anymore. I don't care who it is. God, angel, demon, whatever. Just give him back to me." Thunder covered the rest of the plea. In the silence that followed, she cried until she had no tears left. When she rose, her mind was empty, her body light. For an instant, a single instant, the air seemed to vibrate. Lights flickered, and a low noise ran through the monitors. Evelyn froze, heart racing. "Nathan?" she whispered. But the boy remained still, his chest rising and falling in the same artificial rhythm. She shook her head, wiped tears, and returned to her chair. She thought she had imagined it, that despair was making her hear things. But outside, in clouds over Los Angeles, something moved. That night, Evelyn dreamt. She dreamt of fire, of burned wings, and eyes glowing like embers. She dreamt of a voice whispering her name, and of a man standing in the middle of a dark field, surrounded by shadows. He said nothing, only watched her. She woke sweating, feeling someone in the room. She looked around, but there was no one, only the faint reflection of hospital lights on the window. She breathed deeply and told herself it was fatigue. Yet in the window's glass, for a second, the breath of the air formed words that faded too quickly to read. Evelyn didn't see them, but had she looked at the exact moment, she would have read, "I heard." Night fell over Los Angeles like a heavy, humid veil, lit only by tired neon. Downtown, the Ecliptic was a discreet refuge, a place where souls went to forget that they existed for a few hours. Inside, the piano's deep sound cut the air like an ancient whisper. Luke Hale played with his eyes closed, letting notes flow slowly, as if each one carried a piece of memory. The bar was nearly empty. A couple argued in low voices near the door. A group of men laughed too loudly. Then she entered. Evelyn. Wet coat, distant gaze, shoulders burdened with the kind of pain no one can hide. She paused in the doorway, as if unsure why she was there. Then she walked to the bar and ordered the first whiskey she found. Luke noticed her at once, not by beauty, though there was a softness about her, but by the energy radiating from her. It was the same vibration he had felt when hell expelled him, the same sound that had torn him from darkness. She was the voice. He kept playing, watching her in the piano's glass reflection. She drank quickly, without savoring, only to warm herself. Her hands trembled. Inside, she still bore the echo of the previous night's dream, the man with ember eyes. When the set ended, Luke rose from the bench. He walked to her in silence. Dark suit, firm step, a calm, impossible to ignore gaze. Evelyn only noticed him when he was at her side. "You called me," he said, his voice low and serene, almost as if not speaking to her but to something inside her. Evelyn frowned, confused. "Sorry. What? You called me," he repeated, setting the glass on the bar. "And I came." She let out a short, nervous laugh. "You must be confusing me with someone else. I didn't call anyone." Luke tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Sometimes people call without knowing it." She turned to him, annoyed and curious at once. "Look, I just came for a drink. I don't want to talk." He smiled at the corner of his mouth, unoffended. "Me neither," he replied. "I just wanted to say thank you. Thank me for pulling me out of where I was." She stared for a few seconds, trying to decide whether it was irony, madness, or charm. There was something about him that made her uneasy. Not fear, but familiarity. A feeling of having seen him before, in some dream, somewhere impossible. "Right," she said, grabbing her purse. "That was officially weird. Good night." She rose and left hastily, pushing the door. Outside, the rain began anew. Luke remained, watching the empty space she left. Her glass was half full. He spun it slowly, watching the amber liquid reflect the bar's dim light. The owner shouted from the counter, "Luke, was that what I thought it was?" "No," he answered without looking. "It was a reunion." He stepped into the street, coat flapping, rain cold on his face. He followed her steps at a distance, not from curiosity, but because something inside him said it wasn't over. Evelyn walked quickly toward her car, heart racing without knowing why. She felt his gaze at her back, as if the air around her had taken form. As she opened the car door, she looked back, and for a moment saw him standing in the rain, motionless like an ancient statue. Streetlights flickered. Thunder burst over the city. When she blinked, he was gone. On a nearby rooftop, Luke watched the city. Raindrops ran down his face and mixed with something he had not named for centuries. Curiosity. He whispered to himself, "The voice has a face, and it looks too human." The wind blew hard, and for the first time since his return, he felt something akin to fear. 2 days passed since he first saw her. 2 nights of silence and restlessness. Luke tried to ignore what he felt, but there was something about Evelyn that pulled at him like an invisible force. He found himself returning to the same bar, playing the same notes, and in each one he heard the echo of her voice. On the 3rd night, he could not resist. He followed her at a distance through Los Angeles' dark streets. Evelyn hurried along, clutching her bag to her chest, eyes worn from living more among memories than real days. He did not yet know where she was headed, but the feeling in his chest grew with each step. It was as if the air around vibrated, an energy he recognized. Life, pain, and something beyond that. A fractured faith. She stopped before a hospital. St. Mary's. Pale sign lights reflected in her eyes. Luke lingered in the shadow watching her enter. Something inside him tightened. A distant memory of when he still believed human pain could be borne. He waited a few minutes and entered as well. He walked the cold corridors, invisible to mortal eyes, merely a presence, a breath that extinguished lamps as it passed. He paused at door 407, the name on the plaque, Nathan Grant. The air inside felt heavy. Machines blinked in artificial rhythms, technology's heart attempting to mimic life's. Evelyn sat beside the bed, holding the boy's hand. Luke approached silently. The boy's face looked peaceful, but something was missing. The soul was not fully there. Or rather, it was there, divided, trapped between 2 worlds. Undecided. He felt the same cold that once surrounded him in hell. He is still here, he murmured to himself, but he doesn't know the way back. He stepped forward. The monitor blinked irregularly. Evelyn lifted her head, startled. Who's there? Silence. Luke stood motionless, watching her. She did not see him, but she felt him, the human instinct that recognizes the impossible. He revealed himself, emerging slowly from the gloom, as if shadow became body. It's me. Evelyn jumped up, heart pounding. What? How did you get in here? Luke offered a small smile. I never left. She stepped back, searching for a rational explanation. You followed me. Are you stalking me? I heard you, he said simply. The prayer. Evelyn shook her head, denying it. Prayer? I haven't prayed in years. Then it was a plea, he corrected, stepping closer. And please, always reach somewhere. She watched him, torn between fear and something else. Something that made her remember the dream. What do you want from me? Luke glanced at the boy. Not from you. From him. He pointed. His soul is trapped between worlds. She swallowed hard, unable to speak. How do you know that? He crouched by the bed and passed his hand over the boy's brow without touching. A faint glow swept the room, and for a second Evelyn swore she heard a whisper, like someone's breathing from far away. I know because I have been there, he answered, and the way back is narrow. Can you help him? She asked in a thin voice. Luke rose slowly. I can try, but nothing comes without a price. Evelyn stepped forward. I'll pay. Anything. He studied her for a moment. Her gaze was the same that had called him. Raw, real, human. A look neither heaven nor hell had ever understood. Be careful what you offer, he said. Human love is the most expensive currency there is. Evelyn drew a sharp breath, tears returning. If it's to have him back, take everything. Luke walked to the window. Outside, the city watched. Wind snuffed half the corridor lights. He spoke without looking at her. Then start preparing. Because when a soul is pulled back, something must take its place. Evelyn felt blood run cold, but did not look away. If that's the price, I pay it. Luke watched her silently, and for the first time since his return, something within him stirred, a distant memory of what compassion once was. The monitor beside the bed beeped softly, and the boy twitched a finger. Evelyn cried out and fell to her knees. Luke closed his eyes. Hell heard the first heartbeat. Morning found the hospital silent. Dawn rose between buildings, but in room 407 time still clung to the night before. Evelyn had not slept. She had spent hours watching her son, fearing that the small movement, that single finger, had been only reflex. Luke leaned against the wall, motionless, like a shadow. He hadn't slept. He only watched. The first rays of light crossed the window and fell upon him, revealing features that seemed almost unreal. Evelyn stared at him, exhausted, and finally asked, "Who are you?" He took a moment to answer, choosing each word as if weighing it. "Someone who was called." "That tells me nothing," she retorted. "An ordinary man doesn't walk corridors unseen. An ordinary man doesn't make machines tremble." Luke looked away. "I'm not an ordinary man." Evelyn shivered. "Then what are you?" He stepped closer, his voice calm, deep, effortless. "Someone who knows hell well." Silence pressed after that. Evelyn inhaled, trying to process what she'd heard. She wanted to laugh, but his gaze forbade it. There was no madness there, only certainty. "If you came to frighten me, you succeeded. I didn't come to frighten you. I came to answer." She stared, not understanding. "Answer what?" "Your plea," he said. "That night, when you knelt on the floor and said you'd accept even the devil if he gave your boy back." Evelyn froze. The coffee slipped from her hands and spilled across the floor. "How do you know that?" Luke moved slowly closer. "Because I heard." She took a step back. "You're saying that you are—" He interrupted with a half smile. "Names don't matter. I've been called many." Her heart raced. "If it's true, then tell me. Can you save him?" Luke looked at the boy, his eyes darkening like coal. "I can bring him back. But every life returned requires balance. A price." Evelyn stepped forward without hesitation. "Tell me the price." "I don't know yet," he answered. The forces that bind the child are not solely of this world. When I tear the veil, something will be demanded. And it may not be of me. I don't care, she said firmly. Just tell me what to do. Luke came closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. Think carefully before accepting. A trade like this changes everything. Neither of you will be the same. Evelyn held her son's hand and looked at him, fragile, pale, alive and dead at once. I'm not the same since the day he left. Luke stood silent. There was truth in her words, and something in him reacted, a spark of something forgotten, something he had tried to smother since the dawn of time. Then it's done, he said at last. I will help. She watched, trying to gauge if it was real. What do I do? Just be here, he replied. When I call, hold him. No matter what happens, do not let go of his hand. Evelyn nodded, resolved. Luke turned to the window. Morning was fully awake now, but outside the sky seemed to convulse. Clouds moving in opposite directions, as if the air itself rejected what was coming. There's something you need to know, he said, still looking away. What I'm going to do is not allowed, neither here nor there. Then why do it? She asked. He turned his face, a faint smile touching his lips, but his eyes carried centuries of exile. Because someone taught me what it is to lose. He left the room in silence. Evelyn watched him go, heart racing and mind a tangle. For a moment she thought she'd hallucinated, until she saw a small dark feather on the floor where he'd stood. She bent and touched it. It was real. In the corridor, Luke walked slowly, the sound of his steps echoing. Lights flickered as he passed, one by one. The world seemed to recognize what was about to happen, and in the back of his mind, an ancient voice whispered, every promise made in despair has a price, and hell always collects. Night fell over Los Angeles again, dense and heavy. In room 407, the air felt thicker than usual. Evelyn slept in the armchair, exhausted, her hands still clasped around her son's. Luke stood by the window, motionless, his gaze lost on the horizon. The clock read 3:13 a.m. when he opened his eyes completely. The world's sound fell silent. No cars, no wind, no breathing. Only an absolute hush, the kind that precedes the impossible. Luke stepped forward and the lights began to flicker. The window glass trembled. An ancient energy condensed in the air, as if reality feared being opened. He raised his hand and archaic symbols began to form, marks that belonged to neither heaven nor the abyss. From the boy's body, a nearly invisible thread of light rose, wavering like smoke, the soul, hesitant, trapped between worlds. Luke saw it and drew a long breath. You've been between places too long, little one. It's time to come back. But the veil reacted. The floor shook, and the sound of wings cutting air echoed through the room. Shadows took shape. Voices whispered from all corners. This is not allowed. You broke the pact. No soul returns without another falling. Luke stood firm. His gaze burned like living embers. I've seen rules broken by hypocrite angels. Today it's my turn. Lights burst and the room filled with energy. Evelyn woke startled, heart racing. What's happening? She cried, trying to rise. Hold his hand, Luke ordered without breaking his stare. Don't let go, no matter what you see. The boy's body arched as the monitor spiked. The soul trembled above him, trying to fix itself. Evelyn wept, clinging to his hand. Nathan, I'm here, sweetheart. Come back to me. Shadows twisted around Luke, trying to drag him. Black wings, distorted faces, echoes of a past naming him by his true name. Lucifer, this is not your place, he answered, shouting through the flames that rose from the floor. Then take me from here. An explosion of energy shattered the window glass. Evelyn shielded her son with her body. Curtains ripped, machine sounds were torn away, time was pulled. Amid the chaos, Luke thrust his hand into the void and pulled. A second of absolute silence. Then the monitor gave a single beep, then another, and another. Nathan breathed. Evelyn sobbed, face in her hands. He's back. Luke fell to his knees, spent. Invisible wings tore the air behind him, revealing for an instant the burnt sheen of feathers, a reminder of what he had been and what he would never again be. Shadows recoiled, screaming, dissolving into darkness. But one remained, a figure standing at the edge of the light, watching, a shape with golden eyes and a calm voice. "You've crossed the line, brother." Luke lifted his gaze. "I've always been good at that." "They will come for her," the figure said before vanishing. Evelyn, still clutching her son, heard nothing. Luke looked at them, mother and child breathing in the dim dawn, and felt the weight of choice. He knew the balance had been broken. The price was still due. He rose slowly, injured, eyes distant. "Let them come," he murmured. "I've been to hell once." He left the hospital without looking back, leaving ash of feathers on the floor where they had fallen. Dawn brought an unreal silence. The hospital seemed unchanged, but nothing was the same. In room 407, the air still smelled of ozone and iron, residue of what had occurred hours before. Evelyn slept with her head on her son's bed, exhausted. Nathan breathed. Doctors arrived at sunrise, puzzled. They found the boy awake, eyes open, body weak but alive. No alarm, no explanation. Just a miracle. Evelyn cried and laughed at once, unable to understand the impossible before her. But Luke had already vanished. 3 days passed. Nathan's case spread through the hospital, then the city like one of those stories no one could explain. The boy who woke from a coma without medical cause. Evelyn refused interviews, avoiding cameras, wanting only to return home and forget what had happened. But at night, she could not sleep. Nightmares began on the 3rd day. She dreamed of burnt wings falling from the sky, of figures watching through windows, of distant footsteps in the shadows, and among it all, the same voice, his. The price has not been paid. Nathan had changed too. He seemed the same child, but something in his gaze was different. Too much silence, too much perception. Sometimes he stared into nothing and smiled as if listening to someone. Sometimes he said things he should not know. The first night home, Evelyn found him awake, sitting on the bed looking out the window. "You should be sleeping, love," she said. The boy turned slowly. "Mama, the man of fire is sad," he replied. She stopped. "What man?" "The one who helped me," he answered, with a serenity beyond his years. "He is lonely." Her heart tightened. She remembered Luke's face, the strength in that gaze and the solitude that wrapped him. "Where did you see him?" she whispered. Nathan pointed toward the window. "He's there," he breathed. Evelyn opened the curtains. Nothing. Just the rain-slick street and distant lamplights. When she turned back, the boy slept deeply. In days that followed, Evelyn began to sense the presence before she saw it. Lights flickered. The clock stopped at the same hour. The wind slipped through cracks, cold beyond reason. And always the same whisper from nowhere. Balance needs a price. On the 6th day, she found him. It was night. Evelyn walked the streets of Los Angeles alone, unable to bear her doubt. The same bar, the Ecliptic, now seemed abandoned. The sign burned out, windows filthy. But when she pushed the door, the piano's sound welcomed her. Luke sat there, playing a slow, melancholic melody, his gaze fixed on the keys, sleeves rolled, the shadow of wings marking the floor. "I thought I'd never see you again," she said, stopping at the doorway. He did not look up. "Neither did I. What's happening to me? To my son?" Luke stopped playing, fingers still hovering above the keys. "What you asked was answered, but the scale moved. What was given to you will be charged to me." Evelyn moved closer, confused. "To you?" He raised his eyes. They burned a sad golden hue. "For a long time I was incapable of feeling. You brought that back. And when a demon feels again, hell misses it." She struggled to understand. "So they're coming after you?" "And everything that touches me," he replied. "You, the boy, the world around us will begin to tear." She shook her head, frightened. "Then why help me?" Luke rose slowly and walked to her. Because for the first time in ages, someone called me without fear. Silence settled between them. Bar lights flickered. Thunder rolled far off. He extended a hesitant hand. There's still time for you to flee. Evelyn looked at him and answered with the calm of one who has already crossed hell once. I don't run from the one who saved me. Luke breathed deeply. Then prepare, because heaven and hell have already begun to search. At the moment he said it, an invisible crack traced the air. Bottles on shelves trembled. Candle flames flickered. Evelyn felt a deep chill, certain the true hell was yet to come. The rain had paused, but the city did not sleep. Los Angeles hung in suspense, as if the whole world held its breath before a fall. On a rooftop, Luke watched the horizon. Urban lights flickered like candles about to be snuffed. He knew what it meant. The echo of the rupture had reached the other side. In heaven, nothing remained secret. A fissure cut the firmament, invisible to human eyes. From within it descended something. A white, cutting brilliance, followed by a shrill sound, like air slashed by a blade. The first hunter had been sent. He was called Cassiel, a name all but forgotten in scripture, guardian of broken vows. His wings were pale and long, his eyes a dull silver, his expression cold. He had not come to converse, he had come to correct. Wind blew hard as Cassiel touched the world's surface. Clouds parted around him. The angelic presence was pure order. Everything that was not light bowed as he passed. He walked the streets unnoticed, but at each step, streetlights blinked and dogs barked. Luke felt the impact before he saw him. An ancient, familiar weight pressed his chest. The voice of heaven echoed in his mind. Fallen. The veil was violated. Balance must be restored. Luke smiled bitterly. Always so poetic, Cassiel, he muttered into the void. Centuries, and you still sound like a sentence. The reply was immediate, the air vibrating. You interfered. A human soul was torn from its fate. This cannot go unpunished. Luke folded his arms, watching the city. Funny, when heaven interferes, they call it a miracle. When I do the same, they call it a crime. You have no right. I have lost many rights, not the will, he replied, voice low, almost a whisper. Cassiel found him atop an old hotel, wind whipping between buildings. The two faced one another, one made of light, the other of shadow. The perfect contrast of what they were and what they chose to be. What do you plan now, brother? Cassiel asked, descending slowly. Nothing, Luke answered. I've fulfilled her request. Cassiel scanned the horizon, as if he could see the sleeping child below and hear the irregular pulse. What you did won't be erased. Hell has opened again. You broke the seal of the fall. Luke turned to him. Maybe the seal needed breaking. The air crackled and Cassiel opened his wings. You know I cannot let you stay. Luke smiled, melancholic. You can try. Light exploded between them. The sky split in a white flash that ripped the hotel's rooftop. The whole city felt the impact. Glass shattered, alarms screamed, and a rain of sparks fell onto the streets. Below, Evelyn woke to the sound of the blast. Nathan cried in his room, saying the man of fire was hurt. She ran to the window and saw the flash dying over the rooftops. Above, Luke staggered, wounded, dark blood running down his hand. Cassiel watched him with sad, unyielding eyes. You still act as if there is redemption, the angel said. Luke met his gaze, breathing hard. It's not redemption, Cassiel. It's choice. Something you never understood. Cassiel hesitated. Just enough. Luke advanced, and the clash of forces flung them across the sky, a white blaze engulfing all. When the light subsided, only a golden feather and a black one drifted down, crossing the wind and disappearing into the city's streets. Below, Evelyn saw them fall. One landed on the sidewalk at her feet. She bent, picked up the golden feather, and looked to the sky. She knew, without understanding how, that it was not over. The wind stopped. The light of the clash faded in the distance like a final sigh. and Los Angeles breathed again. But the world was not the same. The fissure between heaven and hell remained, invisible to human eyes, pulsing like a fresh wound at the earth's heart. And at the center of that wound, a body fell. Luke pierced the clouds like a dead star, coat torn, dark blood marking the air until his impact. The sound was dull. The body lay still. For an instant, hell seemed to vibrate with satisfaction. But he still breathed. From above, Cassiel watched with closed wings, a composed expression. "Mercy is not my choice, brother. It is order." Luke coughed blood and laughed, choked by it. "Order is just the pretty name you give to cowardice." Cassiel landed. His wings touched the ground and the air grew heavy. "Do you remember what was said at the beginning? No angel may love a mortal. No fallen may interfere with the destiny of a human soul." Luke lifted his face, eyes burning like wet embers. "Then tell me, Cassiel, who wrote that rule? I remember a God who spoke of compassion." Cassiel stood silent for a moment. His gaze wavered, a crack in the mask of divinity. "That doesn't change what must be done." He raised his blade. The sword, forged of pure light, reflected the grey sky and the sleeping city. Luke closed his eyes. "Do it." But before the sword could fall, the air shifted. A soft sound, like a song, echoed among the buildings. Cassiel paused. The blade's brilliance wavered. Evelyn stood there, alone, hair dishevelled, eyes raw from crying, clutching the pendant that belonged to her son. "Stop," she said, voice trembling. "If he dies, the world loses something it hasn't yet understood." Cassiel studied her. "You do not know what he is." "I know enough," she answered. "He heard what even God would not listen to." The angel hesitated. The sword faltered, and Luke, still fallen, managed a weak smile. "Seems free will is contagious." Cassiel lowered the blade. "There is a price for that, woman. By defending him, you mark yourself." Evelyn stepped closer. "I've already been marked by pain. The rest doesn't scare me." Cassiel looked at her for a long while. Then he turned to Luke. "You opened the breach, and now it belongs to you. Neither heaven nor hell will take you. You walk between worlds. What you do henceforth will be your responsibility." The sword melted into light. Cassiel spread his wings and vanished in a flash. Silence returned. Evelyn ran to Luke and knelt beside him. "You're alive," she whispered. He looked at her, a tired smile on his lips. "For now." She helped him to his feet. They stood there together, amid ruins and rain, while sirens wailed in the distance. Luke looked up. The fissure still pulsed, invisible, but he could feel it. The balance was broken. "They'll come after me, maybe after us." Evelyn squeezed his hand. "Then let them come." He laughed, weak but genuine. "You have no idea what you say." She looked at him. "I know exactly." Luke turned his gaze to the horizon. The world will change, and every angel who falls will bring something back with them. The wind blew, and a black feather landed between them. Evelyn picked it up. The instant she touched it, a mark gleamed on her skin, discreet, golden, almost invisible. The pact was sealed. Luke looked at her with a mixture of admiration and fear. "Now you are also part of the fall." She smiled through tears. "Then we fall together." A distant sound of bells echoed through the city. The first omen of the hunt. High in the sky, new silhouettes descended. 10, maybe 12. Each a potential fallen angel. Each a story waiting to be told. As the imaginary camera pulled away over the Los Angeles skyline, the final narration came like a whisper. Every light that descends to earth brings a little of the darkness. And sometimes, it is the darkness that teaches how to love.